Tino, Ryan Jack's discipline concerning. It has to be, yes, it has to be, because this is the time to stamp down on it, if you'll excuse the slightly awful pun. This is the time that the manager needs to take him aside and say, you are no use to us in that stand, absolutely none, and that you are an important player for us and you're doing well. Do not screw it up by starting to miss matches, because it's pointless. I'll cut him a bit of slack for the red card at Hamilton. I think it was stupid to go in for that second tackle being on a yellow, but I do think that the pitch had an effect on it. So everyone's allowed an aberration, and everyone's allowed a legit sending off, by which I mean, you know, you make a tackle in the 15th minute and one in the 80th minute. That'll happen to a lot of footballers, and especially if you're centre mid and you're expected to tackle. So that's something that the manager will address, I'm sure, with him. And yeah, it just, I hope someone takes him aside and says, you're important to us, we need you out on that field, and take the responsibility. A lot of people, as we tend to do with players, are starting to say, oh, maybe a future captain, and I can see it. He's got previous captaincy experience, and, you know, okay, this would be being captain in a proper football club, but even so, you know, I accept that being captain in Aberdeen and then being captain at Rangers is a bit like then saying, oh well, he could climb the Himalayas because he climbed a climbing frame in school, but it's still something that we want to look at, and we want him to have a long and successful career for us. So yeah, just the exception being is if we're winning comfortably in an Old Firm game or losing heavily in an Old Firm game, if you want to take someone out and take a 3-gamer, Ryan, yeah, I'll write you a note excusing you for it. Dale McClatchy, if you could put one ex-player in the current squad, who would it be and why? It would be, oh fucking hell, man. Oh, it would be Brian Laudrup. Let's just cut to the chase. It would be Brian Laudrup, because he would win us the league single-handedly. Yes, even with the other 10 that we've got around him, he was that good. He was just, and I loved watching him. And the best thing about Brian Laudrup, I could say, is that you didn't take him for granted, even at the time, because it's so easy when you're in the middle of something to not appreciate it for what it fully is, you know, to not appreciate the wonder of it. And it only in time do you realise how special it was. But I don't think that we did realise how special he was. We did know how amazing he was, and we loved him for it. So I think that it's no slight on any other Rangers player for me to say that I'd have Brian Laudrup there in a heartbeat, and a whole new generation of people could swoon over him, because, you know, he was so handsome. Robert Fulton, what does next year hold for Club 1872, and what way can it reach out to more fans? Well, I don't know what it's got for it. I'm not involved in it, so that's not something I know. And I'm sure it'll have its own plans to try and reach out and improve communication. It's always difficult for a group, and I do need to cut them some slack there, that it's always difficult for fans group in terms of communication with supporters, because you're not full time doing it. You know, you do this on top of your job or your daily life or your family, etc. And it would be lovely if you could run everything past everyone, but it just doesn't matter. All I think you can ask for from a fans group is that for the next year it continues to fight for the issues that matter to the support. That's its job, over and above everything else, and continues to at least make attempts to communicate with the support. I think they make mistakes. I try not to be too critical of those mistakes, because there is no playbook for this. There is no how-to manual, and I know from personal experience how difficult it is. You need to try, and I learned this late on in my time at the Trust, and maybe a little too late, is that you need to develop a thick skin and not respond to absolutely every piece of criticism, and also be able to sort out valuable constructive criticism from the other, because you do need a tough hide or you wouldn't be able to get anything done. But you still need to be able to say, alright, that's a load of pish, that's just somebody moaning for the sake of it, but this guy here, what he's saying, this is valid, and although this is maybe uncomfortable for us to admit this. We do need to do this better. This is something we could improve upon. So it takes a lot of skill and humility and vision to be able to do all of that. So it's a tough job for anyone, and I wish them the best, because if they're doing well, it's because they're doing what the fans need them to do, and if they're doing what the fans need them to do, then they're absolutely fulfilling the criteria for being a fans group, and more credit to them for that. Jack Hutchinson, do you think Rangers will ever play outside of Scottish football, i.e. European Super League, EPL, etc., and if so, how well would we do? I don't think we'll ever play in England. I've never thought we would play in England. I think it's an absolutely dead idea. I don't think anyone in England needs or wants it, and therefore it's not going to happen. So it's not possible, short of a civil war up here, where it's dangerous for us to play our games. It's just never going to happen. A European League is always a possibility, and I think that you're seeing some machinations by the top clubs in England at the moment to get more money, with the usual threats of, well, we'll go off and do our own thing. And that's why you can't rule out things like a European Super League or an Atlantic League or any of the rest of it, because you never know what is going to kick things off between certain clubs, and then the butterfly effect that will have. Because, you know, if the top 6 English clubs do break off and they form a European Super League, then that does change it. Maybe then there is such a thing as a British League, or maybe then it's a kind of Northern European League. You don't know. So I don't see us ever playing just straightforwardly joining the English League and then going up it and being a club in the English League. Can I see us in some sort of amalgam of us, Dutch, Danish, that kind of thing? Yes, of course. There's a real potential for that. I don't see it at the moment. It will take something to change somewhere in the structure of how European football is set up, and not necessarily in Britain. It'll take something big changing. I don't see it happening in the next decade, can I put it that way? I don't think I'd be planning out those trips to Amsterdam for Friday night matches on BT just yet. Richard Love, your name is Dick Love. I hope that's your real name, because you must be hard as fuck if you got through school with that name. Would you ever consider a live Q&A in London? Well, I would if you asked me, Richard, because obviously what I previously just said. It would have to be financially viable, so that's the problem with it. So it's not financially worth dragging me and a couple of others or whoever down to England with travel, accommodation, and then potentially maybe 20 people turn up and we come back up the road the next day and it's just been a kind of soul destroying experience. So we'd consider doing one anywhere if it's financially viable. And so long as Scott doesn't have to fly to it, because he thinks that planes are basically death tubes. So yeah. John Orfoisier, John with a funny second name. What changes in future would you like to see at stadium? Museums, Edmondson House, more designed fan zones, surrounding area, etc. Yeah, I think the stuff you mentioned, I think a museum would be great. I think a really big, nice place where you could go with kids but also get a beer for the grown-ups would be fantastic. And even if it was just some sort of huge marquee that they could put outside, and just have somewhere where people could go get a beer and a seat, and their kids could get a hot dog and a Coke, and there could be activities going on. You can monetize stuff like that if you're the club, because you've got a captive audience who are already well disposed to you, and you've got them in a good setting. So I think that kind of thing would be useful. I think if anybody's ever been to American stadia, they'll know what I mean by this, that there's so much to do in it. There are always museums, there are always kiddie zones, there are always bars and restaurants, there's even shops and stuff. They are remarkable. So I think that there is a lot of scope for us to improve in that. The issue, as always, is that it will have an initial startup cost. That startup cost is quite a lot and can take a while to recoup. So unless you're recouping it very, very unless you're recouping it or you've got the ability to say we won't recoup this for 5 years, but we'll make money. It's quite difficult, and at a time when we need to focus on getting a better product on the pitch, then unfortunately things that are good ideas and should be done might take a little bit longer to do. Captain Miserable. On a scale of 1 to Richard Osman, how pointless is the international break? I like that question. That's well put, Captain Miserable. I think I kind of spoke about that earlier on, but I'm never sad to see it finish. Right, can I just put it that way? Colin Carstairs. If you could change anything at board level, what would it be? I would make, and this is genuine, I would make the board of directors make away trips on awkward nights with supporters buses. So, for instance, if we're playing Ross County, on a Friday night, I think that they should make that journey. And I think then they would get a better understanding of just what it is that drives the support and the level to which these people are invested in the club, and then they would get an idea of just how great the responsibility is that they have. But from a practical point of view, I would look at our PR as always. I think that that's something that needs to be improved. I think desperately they need to look at fan engagement, because I think that there is a feeling of, even if it's subconscious, there is a feeling of, well, the fans, they'll always turn up, and I think in an increasingly competitive marketplace for people's leisure money, that's not always the case. And I think that they have to remember that people can feel that they are a Rangers fan and they buy a calendar and they buy a strip for their kid and they go to 2 matches a year, and they are still a supporter. I'm not criticising anyone who does that, but I think if the board, and they can sometimes fool themselves with this thinking, is that everyone is a go to every game, I'll buy tickets for all the friendlies, I'll buy the strips and the tracksuits and everything that comes out the day it comes out. And they need to realise that there is a far less engaged level of supporter and probably a lot more of them, and we need to try and move them. People who work in marketing will know about segmentation. I know the Bill Hicks lines that are currently being spat at machines being used to listen to this, but we need to move everybody up one. We need to move people from casual supporter into active supporter. We need to move people from someone who would say they had a fondness for the club into the role of casual supporter, and start to monetize everybody if we can. And that's why you need a really, really crack marketing team, and it's also incidentally why you need a PR team who don't just focus on negative stories. PR is both ways. PR is not just fighting the negative, it's promoting the positive, and that's something I think we struggle very badly at. Rangers do astonishingly good community and charity work, and it does not get the focus that it deserves, and I think that that's a failing on our part, because especially when you know that the media is preternaturally predisposed against you, then you have to then force your way out there with your story. And I don't think we do, unfortunately, at the moment. So that would be something that I would look at. This next one comes from Grant. What are your thoughts on our future with the director of football? Are you content with one guy, a newcomer to the club, being able to pick players, managers, etc., common abroad, but can it work here? Of course it can work here, because the idea that anything from abroad shouldn't be at least looked at, considering how much more successful football in the continent is compared to us, I think is not one we can afford to entertain. We've absolutely got to look at things that work. And I've always thought that the director of football role is very sensible, where you have a guy who heads up recruitment and heads up contracts, etc., and you have a coach who coaches the players, which should be their strength. I think in Britain we are kind of enthralled to the cult of the manager and the sort of dad figure that everyone can look to and say, he'll make sure everything's all right. And when it works, a la Walter, it's fantastic. And when it doesn't work, a la Warburton, you see the flaws in it. So it's a lot of power for one guy. You're absolutely right there. I don't know enough about Mark Allen, and we haven't seen enough from him yet to know whether or not he's doing a good job. But the idea of somebody having that remit is just sensible. The buck needs to stop with someone. And I think once you start to run things by committee, you can get into a lot of trouble, because nobody takes blame and everybody wants to claim credit, and you end up with this sort of mishmash of stuff that doesn't really work. You need someone to say it's my testicles are on the chopping block, and these are my decisions, and I stand or fall by them. Gene, in terms of personality, friendliness and demeanour, who have been your favourite and least likeable Rangers players that you've met? Likeable ones, Stephen Davis, very nice, very helpful. Nacho Novo's obviously a pretty decent guy. Kevin Thompson, of course, blood legend. It's then tough to least likeable because I'm going to bury guys and they don't really have a right to reply. There were people that I'm fortunate that I've never had an experience with any Rangers player being out and out awful to either me personally or to a group I was involved in, but I've seen examples of bad behaviour. There are infamously people who you maybe would book for an event and they would turn up and they would either hold you up for more money or they wouldn't deliver the type of performance that they had promised or that you had paid them for, or they would get very belligerent and they would cause hassle on the night. And I think as I'm saying this might have brought back memories for other people who've organised Rangers nights before about a certain ex-player, and that should tell you who that ex-player is, but I'm gonna prick tease you a little here. I'm not gonna say it because it's just burying the guy, and you read from time to time that things are different with him, and I sincerely hope they are. Out and out nicest actually is Marvin Andrews, who's just brilliant. The guy is just so happy, he's just over the moon and about life in general and about meeting people, and he's friendly and he can't do enough for you. And yeah, Marvin Andrews, great guy. William Lothian, do you still get a lot of shite from the media and other football fans even though you've taken a step back from the front line? You get it less, or I get it less in public than I used to, but a lot of that might be due to the fact that I don't spend as much time in public as I used to. So that's maybe one of the benefits of retiring. When your mug's on the telly, once or twice a week, then yes, I suppose I did get it a lot more back then. I don't get a lot of shite from the media now. No, I've got to say in general that most of them are very the ones that are aware of who we are generally quite decent towards us. I have to say that, because I don't think they see what we're doing as having any impact on them. Which is fine, that the pod does exist in its own world, and they don't really see it as being a problem. Whereas in the old days, they kind of saw it as stepping on their toes. They were very much, who are these guys to be coming along and telling us what we're doing wrong, or telling us what we should put in our newspapers. And that was always the thing that pissed me off. People said I had a chip on my shoulder when I was at Trust, and I did, and it was because of that attitude, and it came from the club, it came from other clubs, and it came from the media, and it was, who the fuck do you think you are? And I'm like, I'm a supporter, and I'm a supporter. I put money into this business, whereas you just take it out, and how dare you suggest that I don't have the right to voice my opinion, and the opinion that thousands of other people are telling us that they want put forward that you won't deal with. And I remember tearing an absolute strip off Bain one time when he sort of alluded to that, and he said, well, we have to limit obviously the input that fans have into this. I can't even remember what project it was, and I went loopy and just, who the fuck do you think you are, kind of thing. And it was one of those situations where it was kind of nose to nose and people intervening. It was, they didn't get it, and it wasn't that they didn't want to hear from supporters, they actually resented it. In terms of getting crap from other football fans, social media, there is a part of every social media platform that is a cesspool, and it will sink into the kind of lowest form of scum, and they will try and annoy you. And generally speaking, I call it my Kraftwerk device. If they annoy me, it's autoban, and just never hear from them again. I've got no interest. I've got no interest in sitting point scoring for hours with some belligerent Tim with 6 followers on Twitter, because that's what they live for. They live to get up the noses of Rangers supporters because of their, deserved and continually proven inferiority complex. And I just don't have the time or the inclination to humour them. So this is where being arrogant can be quite good. It's like, you don't deserve my time, and that's why it's just block and get to, and I don't really bother with them. Whereas with Rangers fans, I think even the ones that are critical, generally speaking, it's quite constructive, and generally speaking, people will say, I didn't like when you said that, or I didn't like when you said that. But the good thing about the show is that you have to go and get it. You have to download it. I think it's difficult to stumble across the podcast, whereas I do understand that when I was doing the media, and it would be Radio Scotland one night, reporting Scotland the next, Scotland Today on the Wednesday, phone in on Real Radio on the Thursday, and then there would be quotes from me in stories and papers on the Tuesday and on the Friday. I understand why people got fed up with me. I really, really do. And I got fed up with me by the end up. I was sick of my own voice. The time that I knew I had to stop doing the Supporters Trust and stop being involved in it, and completely stop, not just take a step back or take a time out or move to a different job, and I just had to get out of it, is I just started seeing Sally, who's my wife now, and we were in Liverpool because we'd gone to do the Beatles weekends. You can stay at the Beatles Hotel and go around, and see where they lived and go to Strawberry Fields and everything. And Sal and I are huge Beatles fans, so it was fantastic. And we were going on the Magical Mystery Tour bus tour, and my phone rang, and I looked at it and I went, oh, fuck. And I hung up and put it in my pocket, and then it went again, same thing, and then I just looked and I had like 20 messages, shut my phone, turned it off, put it in my pocket, and Sally went, what's wrong? And I said, no, it's nothing, it's just something's happened with Rangers, and there's 10 journalists getting in touch with me for a quote, and I can't be bothered. And she looked at me and said, well, isn't it supposed to be fun? Don't you get a buzz off doing that? And I said, no, I don't. It's a pain. I resent having to take the shit that's going to follow, because I'll give my opinion and then it'll lead to about a week's worth of stuff. And I thought, no, this wasn't who I was before. I loved doing this and I loved fighting for it. And I realised I was burnt out, and I realised I had nothing that I could contribute in a positive way to Rangers. And therefore, what was the point of me doing it? Because all I was doing was getting in the way of someone who could come and do the job I was doing and do it better and take it on and be the spokesperson for the organisation. And that's when I made the decision. And the Monday I called the rest of the board and said, that's me done. Because I had always got into it to try and provide a voice for people like me who at the time I thought didn't have one, and I always wanted to do things that I thought could help Rangers. And when I was getting to the stage where it was a burden, because I knew deep down I couldn't, and I would say, that's when you start to say things for the wrong reason. That's when you start to not say what needs saying because you're worried about the reaction, or you just can't be arsed with the reaction. And I was done, and it was time to go. And I think I got it right. I think I got out before that had happened, and before I did start to do a bad job, which would have been terrible. That because I'd be letting you down. I'd be letting all of you down, and that was the sleepless nights aspect about it. I couldn't give a flying fuck what some Tim thinks about what I said about anything. You know what I mean? That day will never come where I care what they think about what I say. But if Rangers fans have been let down or disappointed by something I did, then that wasn't something I could live with very comfortably. And that was why I decided to get out of it. And the pod just came about because I wanted to have some fun. That's if people say about the tone of the pod, that it's always managed to be funny and have a laugh and stuff. And it was because I wanted to do that. I thought it would be fun. I hoped it would be worth listening to, and I'm glad that so many of you seem to think that it is. And I'm so grateful, and I really appreciate it. because I don't look for validation from a lot of people. I'm an arrogant bastard, right? And you know the whole cliche of, well, you know, to love someone, you've got to love yourself. Not a problem for me. But I really, really, really fucking don't want to let you guys down. And I really, really don't want to let down my dad and my granddad and his dad and the generations of Rangers supporters and the generations of Rangers supporters in your house. And I don't want to be an embarrassment, and I don't want to do things that will provide ammunition to hurt you or me or the club. It's just not something I wanted to do. And if the pod ever gets into that territory where it's becoming self-parodying or self-pitying, or it becomes so full of its own importance that it somehow thinks that it's anything other than a minor footnote in a appendix of a book about Rangers, then tell me and I'll wrap it. But I'd like to think that I wouldn't be deluded enough not to know when that happens. Kind of accidentally, I've got into one of my speeches at the end of the pod, and I do know that people kind of sort of have come to expect them at the end of the show. And one thing is, I don't want to hide that, and because I never want to lie to you. I never ever want to come on here with a well-rehearsed piece of text and read it out to you just so that people will say, oh, that was great at the end. The one thing I can always promise with 100% sincerity and accuracy is that this pod is honest and it's legitimate, and we don't lie to you. And I don't think about what I'm going to say, because you will be able to tell, because you will say he wrote that down and what was the point of that, and there's no feeling in it, and you can hear it. I think I'm not a trained actor, and I think you would be able to spot when I was at it. So I just love Rangers Football Club. I love the supporters of Rangers Football Club. I love our history, I love our traditions, I love who we are, I love what we stand for. I love the fact that they tried to kill us and we just got right fucking back up and came at them. I like the fact that they've tried laughing at us and we're still coming. I like the fact that they've tried to scare us and we're still coming. And I like the fact that there's nothing that they can do to us that's going to stop us fucking coming for them. And at this point, by the way, I realise I'm swearing like a trooper, and you know, my articulacy has gone out the window, and I could not give a fuck. This thing that we're a part of is so unbelievably fantastic and powerful that it gives us so much more than anyone can possibly imagine. And that's why I get maybe a bit too involved. That's why you get a bit too involved. And you know what? Don't ever change. Don't ever change. Just keep doing it. Keep driving us on. And it is that power. Right at the start, someone asked, do you think that we'll win 55? Yeah, because of us. And nothing they can do is going to stop us coming for them. And whether it be 2019 or 2029, 55 is going to come. And when 55 comes, then it will be, down to the players and the staff, but not really. It will be down to every single one of you who, from the moment that your dad, your mum took you and said, it's the Rangers for you, that you've fought and battled and kicked and scratched to keep us where we should be. And thanks for letting me be a part of it. Thanks for listening to me when I witter on about it. And just thanks for being a bear. Doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to stop coming in your ear with all my nonsense, and just to let you all know that we'll be back later in the week with our preview show now that the international week is over. And thank our executive producer in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Miles. My name is David Edgar. I am a Rangers supporter. I love you all. I'll talk to you again on Friday. Bye.